A warning for sensitive ears. You might want to turn this down for just a moment, because today we're going to talk about RC crawling etiquette. So this is something that we haven't talked about yet, and it is generally having good etiquette when you go out and crawling. Jeez, this is kind of loud. And that's also what I want to talk about. So, a few things about etiquette. The first thing, of course, is that when you go to a location, you don't want to make a mess. You don't want to cause a problem. And as always, you want to pack more trash out than you bring in. This, I think, is common sense for most people, especially people who go out trail riding. You know, when you go somewhere, you don't want to make it worse and maybe get banned from the place from having bad etiquette. But along with the cleanliness, a lot of it has to do with the noise that you make and also the destruction that you could cause to the environment. But let's talk about the noise first. This right here is a castle setup with an outrunner. This is by far one of the loudest setups that you can have for RC crawling. It is also a relatively popular setup. And I would say at this point that if you still have a castle system, you may want to consider updating it to something that's a little bit newer, like one of the AM32 setups. And if I just boot this up real quick, I can show you they're pretty much quiet. And I can tell you an old story from about, let's see, 2000 and, oh, I guess I gotta plug this thing in. It would be 2006, I want to say. And the guy was running all of my equipment, and we were out at Arches National Park in Utah. And, you know, I felt bad because it was all of my equipment and they were running a Castle ESC, and that thing was so loud. You could hear it reverberating off the arches. And I could tell that all the other park goers around there were kind of getting their experience ruined a little bit. And so I literally picked up his crawler and just unplugged it, and he was, 30 feet off to the side or whatever, and kind of looked at me, what are you doing? I was like, they'll talk about this later. And I had the discussion with him that, for a place like this, especially in a national park like that, you don't want to be making that sort of ruckus. So, if you've got a castle system, just be aware of it when you are in a park that you may be interrupting other people's hearing. Dogs really don't like that high-speed squeal, and as an example, from the dock to the street here is about 500 feet. And one of my employees was testing a setup yesterday, and I could hear the outrunner screaming 500 feet away at the street. And I'm on an electric bike that's making its own noise as well, and I could still hear that cutting through. So just be aware. Some setups may have a lot more noise than others, and some setups are completely quiet, except for maybe, you can hear a little bit of pinion jiggle here. But I don't think pinion jiggle is going to make a dog go, oh! That's not very likely. So, that's really one of the biggest things. Along the lines of noise, there is a tendency for people to trail run to have music on. And that is something that, I really don't like listening to music when I'm on a trail run. So if you have a little boombox on your thing, just kind of keep it low. If you can't have a conversation at a normal level when the rig is right next to you, it's probably too loud because people are going to be hearing it. And, I don't really care if my kids hear music with curse words or anything in it, because they know the difference between this is what you can hear and this is what you can say in front of grandma. My kids know the difference, but not everybody may be so appreciative of the newest Ja Rule album that came out. So keep that in mind as well. What's going to make noise on the trail? Be respectful of other people around you, especially people that aren't into crawlers, because your friends that are with you crawling, they're going to be a lot more understanding. It's like, you're making a little bit of noise. We're all making a little bit of noise. You may go out just smoking and drinking on the trail, just having a good time. And if that's what you're into, that's cool. But again, you want to keep your hooping and hollering maybe down to a level where it doesn't interrupt other people. They could be just out there enjoying the park, walking their dog, walking their baby. I don't know, what do people walk these days? Pet raccoons or something like that. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're not interrupting that. So the next part of being respectful, really, of a location is just pay attention to how much you're actually kicking up dirt and stuff. Because a lot of places, okay, so a crawler is really not going to make much of an imprint. I will give you that. But especially with these 6-scale ones that are out there. If you're on an incline and let's say there's rocks here and then there's dirt down here, you could be really digging that out. And if it's something, you know, a lot of rain comes through, whatever, you're going to start to get washouts. And I've actually noticed at our local crawl spot at Capon over the past 20 years of crawling there now, that there are sections that are getting washed out. And it's not much. It's like, you know, we've lost this much dirt in 20 years. So it's really not that huge, but at the same time, you got to be cognizant of it. And, you know, maybe it's a location where there are some natives, maybe there's some endangered species. And so if you're going to go out on trails like this, especially if you want to drive off trail, make sure that you know what you're doing. Make sure that you're not tromping over some natives. Make sure you're not tromping over something that could be endangered out there, and just be extra respectful of the land. Maybe educate yourself a little bit. You know, before you go to a state park, look and see, hey, are there certain plants that grow out here? Are there certain things that I want to make sure that I avoid? And start to educate yourself a little bit on what you could be doing for damage, because long term, you know, this is the only planet that we got, unless Elon has his way. And we really have to be good stewards of the planet. The planet's going to be fine. We're the ones that are going to have the problems if we stamp the planet into the ground. So don't want to get too much out of that, but you got to be respectful of the space. You got to be respectful of us going out. We're crawling in nature. You want to keep nature as nature, and that does mean trash, noise, and impact. So to make sure that you don't piss off the Karens out there, and we got to come up with an equivalent name for dudes as well. Let's see, what's the opposite of the opposite?
Darren?
Darren, yeah. I don't know. Darren seems like he'd be kind of cool with everything. Like, you know, let's chug a beer and crush the can on our forehead, sort of Darren. So, but we'll call him Darren for right now. You know. So let's say you're not having problems, but somebody is, you know, maybe a little bit uncomfortable with it, especially if they work for the city or the state. You don't want to push their buttons on this. And I'm seeing this locally in our state, in Missouri. The Department of Natural Resources has a thing to where you can't use radio control vehicles in state parks. If it's a local park, you know, it's up to the locality there. But in state parks, the DNR has very specific rules. It's rule number 11 that you can't have radio control vehicles. So you can go out and, you know, don't ask, don't tell, ask for forgiveness, not for permission on a lot of these things. But if you start to become known for, usually it's those 3 reasons, either trash, noise, or impact, don't push them. Now we're seeing, unfortunately, locally, that one of our crawler guys, and I'm not exactly sure who it was, decided that he's going to poke the bear a little bit on this and push back on these rules, which have been there for a really long time. And now they are making sure that every park is very well versed in this number 11. And so this pushback was met with more pushback that is unfortunately going to get us kicked out and fined. And they said they will take all of our vehicles, including ones that are in our car. You know, like if you're in the parking lot and you got 10 crawlers in there and you come out with 1 crawler, they're going to take 11 crawlers that day. And this is now policy that they are spreading through all of their little parks. So be cautious of this. If somebody has a problem with you crawling, don't make a big deal about it. Say yes, okay, and try to go through proper channels and be nice about it. Of course, we don't want to be a problem in the parks. We want to be a benefit to the parks. And maybe this means that we schedule cleanup days or whatever it may be. Make sure that you get along with the people who run your city parks, because city parks usually have a lot more control about stuff. And generally, don't be a dumbass, I guess, is really the takeaway for this. So we want to make sure that we can keep our spots to crawl. Not everybody can dump 25 tons of rock into their yard. And so yeah, we gotta play within the rules, and we can only use the spots that we can use as long as the people who control those spots are okay with it. So maybe share some of your stories down below. We've had a long time of crawling at this point. I'm sure there's a lot of stories of either getting kicked out or working very well with your location to make sure that you can continue to crawl, because a little bit of kindness goes a long way. But at the same time, we do have to be respectful of our impact and make sure that we're not ruining the experience for anybody else that's out there. So, as always, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. P.S. Are there any tips or things that you would consider that I didn't think about in this video? Post them down below and we will discuss it.